Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us at the March 14th Lents Neighborhood Livability Association meeting. Don't even know where I am. So our guest speakers tonight are, we may have the Portland Police later. They were supposed to come and they're not here. So we have Brook Muller, who's a professor of architecture, director of University of Oregon Architecture Program, and Sabrina Ortiz, University of Oregon graduate student, who's an assistant to Brook. Before we get started, there are a few announcements that you're probably all reading this already, but one of the things that we'd like to discuss is we put a call out for someone to be the chair of vice, or vice chair, because the state of Oregon requires that we have 3 officers, and no one has wanted to serve except Shar and I, and we're out of compliance without a 3rd officer.
Like usual.
Yeah. Yeah.
You gonna post that on Facebook?
Probably.
Yeah.
So I can't file our tax report with the state until we have a 3rd officer. So Bob has agreed to be our vice chair, and is there any discussion on it?
What's the pay?
The same as what we get paid.
You have to pay them $10 a month.
Actually, you'll get Bob. You'll get paid twice as much. Bob, you'll get paid twice as much as Shar and I do put together.
I thought he got the sign.
You get to show up at every cleanup.
Well, what drew me to it were the duties, nothing.
That's right.
So I'm all in. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, so we have consensus. Bob is now our vice chair.
Hey.
So we have upcoming cleanups at West Rock on March 16th, 23rd, and 30th. And the VFW breakfast on March 17th. And the special will be corned beef hash.
We're green.
Yeah.
And then Nancy Shannon with Keller Williams Realty reached out to Shar to see if we could assist in organizing the Lents version of Keller Williams Realty Red Day on May 9th.
What's that?
It's they do cleanups. Keller Williams across the country has picked May 9th as the day that they annually do a cleanup in the neighborhood that each realty office serves.
Except they're not doing it in their neighborhood because we're gonna pick somewhere over here.
Right.
They're in Clackamas County.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yes, that's where her office is.
Oh, okay.
But she said.
She lives
if you-
here, right?
She lives down the street from us, yes.
I think that's why she chose us.
Yeah, no, she chose us because she knows me and she knows I can put stuff together, so she figured this is an easy one. I'll just reach out to Shar.
Of course.
She can't say no.
Okay, does anyone else have anything that they'd like to announce? Yes, Brian?
Just very briefly, I want to point out that silver thing right there by the TV, that's for cigarettes, and we're going to put that out in front. And I wanted to announce it because Stuart was so excited that he got this, and wanted you to be aware it's out in front.
That's a weird looking ashtray.
Doesn't work. Yeah, there's a hole in it, and you stick the butt in. Yeah.
Do we need to?
It's
Might be a little early. That's not on the agenda, but
Oh,
neighborhood
there they
cleanup
are.
day is June
That's
22nd.
it.
Thank you, guys.
The vice chair, right?
Up here.
We could get more chairs to take it down.
It's just the 2 of you guys tonight, right?
Yeah, we'll sit in the back.
No, well. It's for our reserve scared cats.
Oh, just the vice chair.
So do you does Brian want that outside? Brian, do you want that outside tonight, your ashtray?
Oh, yeah, I'll go put it out there.
Are you
Yeah.
sure? Okay.
It's almost shiny. It looks like somebody might want their shopping cart.
Well, you know, that's what I told them when I first saw it last meeting. It's like, are you sure that's safe outside? But they bring it in.
For those of you who are used to neighborhood cleanup day in June, it's the 22nd. So, big dumpsters out here. Bring your stuff.
Cool.
What
Let
date, June 2nd, you said?
22nd.
June 22nd.
Okay.
Not at the
No, it's up
Real
here.
big dumpster.
It's up here.
Pardon me?
Are they
I
real
know.
big dumpsters?
They are very big dumpsters.
Oh, yeah, they have like, what, 5?
Yeah, we've had as many as 7 in the town.
No, it's a great cleanup.
30 yarders.
There might be. I'm thinking about cutting them a boat.
Yeah, they're probably.
Cut it up a boat.
That's right. No,
Do you
they
own
come up with,
Do you own it?
literally.
Okay.
My paycheck doesn't reflect that.
It's a 25-foot cabin.
We'll call
Actually,
it.
somebody
How you
dumped
doing?
in
I
their
did
yard.
a 19-foot already.
Okay.
I guess we'll find out.
So, our guest speaker, our next guest speakers are Ryan Mele and.
This is not Audie. This is,
It's not?
All right.
Change the program on me.
So I'll let you guys take over.
Oh, we get first ups?
You're
Yes, you
first
do,
up.
because we figured you might have to go to work.
Oh. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ryan Mele. Been a police officer for a little over 10 years. Been on the East Precinct's neighborhood response team for a little over 4 years. I was with Randy Tag for a while, who most of you know. And now we have Sergeant Craig Anderson. Randy finally retired. He's on to bigger and better things. So yeah, this is Officer Nick Bianchini. He's kind of filling in where we can, and as everyone knows, you know, their team is already pretty short-staffed. We cover a very large area for typically 2 people to cover effectively. It's more of a reactive police than a proactive police. I know a few of you in here. Like I said, I have been doing this for a while. Pretty familiar with the problem areas, so before I give off areas that I know about, I'm sure you already know about them, so I feel like it'd probably be more beneficial for you guys to ask me questions, if everyone's okay with that. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
That's it.
Okay.
So Ryan, you took over Randy's position, right, as the lead?
No.
No?
No, that's
Right, wasn't this Randy's position?
usually, yeah.
Community involved.
Yeah, cannot confirm or deny. Are we getting recorded now?
Sorry.
So, no, I'm, long and the short, no, I'm still just your plain old police officer that works out of East Precinct's neighborhood response team. I really love what I do.
So is there a replacement for Randy? Did they?
Sergeant Craig Anderson.
Oh, Craig Anderson, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so actually, it worked out really good. I don't know if you guys know his backstory at all.
We don't.
Craig was a North Precinct neighborhood response team officer before he got promoted. So he came to East Precinct as a new sergeant, and it was just a real easy transition to make. Instead of bringing someone in and inundating them with all of this information, because the neighborhood response team is much different, as most of you know, than just a normal patrol officer, right? There's a lot more in-depth information, there's a lot more community involvement. We're more focused on community livability issues versus going call to call to call to call. So it worked really well with Craig coming in. You know, he's got us working great missions. We're doing quarterly missions at some problem areas at 82nd and Powell, Gateway area. Our quarterly 2 missions are going to be refocused. I don't know those direct areas yet, but again, I think most of you, Char, I think you've actually reached out to Craig through email.
I don't think I have, no, I usually talk to Brown.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Bob, I don't know, have you reached out to Craig, or has anyone reached out to Craig?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
So, yeah, I mean, he's very, he gets it, you know? I mean, as far as sergeants go, I know everyone really liked having Randy and all that, that was great. But I think as far as replacements go, Craig is, he's top
So is
tier.
there any way to get his information?
Yeah, the email that you sent
Oh.
went to Craig as
Oh,
well.
okay.
Because then he sent it to me.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah. Craig.Anderson at
okay,
PortlandOregon.gov.
okay.
Yeah, no, I'd like to, let me know what you guys are thinking, because you guys are living in the area. I'm only working in the area 40 hours a week, so.
So are they doing away with the quads?
Oh. Had to bring up the quads. So, no,
Okay.
but, so we originally had 6 ATVs. 2 of them got crashed, or they were crashed and wrecked. And then one was old, and they took it, and they said it was going to be replaced. It hasn't been replaced yet. And then the other one, I think, was also getting phased out. So we're down to 2 ATVs. So we have a UTV. Is anyone familiar with that? It's like they call them side-by-sides, UTVs. It's the ones where you sit in them and you drive them. They're kind of an off-road vehicle, almost like a cool 4x4 golf cart.
Oh, okay.
But the problem with those is, while I understand the Bureau is very like, yeah, these are great, which they are, but the environment out here in Southeast doesn't really
Adapt.
allow it, because we have those posts on the Springwater Trail, and the quads that we have, they're the size they are because we know that if we go bigger in motors, I mean, some of us are bigger guys, and you want to go fast, but we can't have a bigger quad because they won't go through the posts. And that's the whole reason why we do that, so we don't have to go around the posts and cause damage to the trail. So we kind of try to take the tread lightly term, and use that in the area as well, because we already know a lot of the trails might be misused, and we don't want to damage them even more. So the UTV kind of limits our...
Where you can go.
Yeah, the I-205 bike path, yeah, we can use it on that. It's just we don't like riding them on. I mean, as you guys who have seen us on quads through the summers, we mainly ride them on the trails. We know the trail system. I mean, I know the trail system really well, and I know how to get onto the trails without going on the main roads. But sometimes we have to, but we try to stay away from it just because it's not the safest thing. But with the UTV, it kind of makes it a little bit more difficult. We got some calls into our city fleet people, but yeah.
So you have it, but just 2 and...
We only have 2.
So are you guys involved with the camps down here on Flayville? You probably came up this way, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah. Are you talking about the ones over 92nd, over the bridge?
Right here, 92nd and Flayville.
Okay.
Yeah.
So everyone's familiar with the new IAG, right?
Yes.
Okay, everyone's familiar with it. If you don't know what the IAG is, it's the new agreement between the city and ODOT. So as we know, we've been dealing with ODOT for umpteen years, and while I give them credit, again, it's just resources. I don't know what the lacking is. I'm not going to knock ODOT at all. They've done what they can. They've done the best they can with what they've got. But the city eventually took it over and kind of changed some things. You can look up the new IAG to get the exact, because I know you guys in here are going to want me to say something exact, and I'm probably going to screw it up. So I'm just going to say, do your research and figure out the exact, the new requirements are different. But what it does allow is, in the past, we would come up to someone on the trail, and ODOT would say, okay, we're going to post this, you need to be off the trail. ODOT would come by, 30 days later, or whatever it was, and they would clear the trail. However, it was only 5 feet to the left or right, and you're on city property. And ODOT can't enforce that. That would become a police problem. So then the police would show up, hey, you can't be out here. This isn't a camping area right here. It's not a designated area. So what they would do is right back onto ODOT. So it's, get them here and then up here, here, up here. Exactly. Yes, sir.
Concerning the encampment at the bottom of the hill.
Yep.
There's a huge operation down there in used bicycles.
Sure.
Being And when we call to talk about cleaning up the area and bring this up, they say it's not our responsibility. That's the city saying that.
Who from the city?
Our responsibility, they say it's the police department. No, when we call about the illegal.
Who do you call from the city?
Who do we call?
Mhm.
It's just the illegal camp, the phone number,
Oh man, you're behind the times.
and then they ask me to go and deal with the illegal camp.
So you need to reach out to one point of contact. Most of the people in here, I mean, you guys can let them know, you know, the city camping thing is kind of, I don't even know if that's, do you get a reply on that?
Yes.
You did?
We have been, and then they asked me how many
How many
camps
campers?
and how many people, and
Sure.
the whole list of.
So,
The concern I have is that they fairly regularly clear the campsite,
uh-huh,
but the illegal operation
uh-huh.
moves back within a few days. I mean, there are 50 or 60 bikes down there, underneath tents, bike parts, all over the place.
Sure.
And it seems like it's a crime if you found that many
Yeah,
bicycles
no,
in the front
yeah.
yard, like it doesn't seem to get handled.
So I'm also one of the VIN inspectors, so I understand that, you know, the stolen stuff is huge, right? I understand bike theft is not a new thing in Portland, as we all know that, right? I'm not gonna leave my bike at 82nd and Powell or 82nd and Flavel while I run into 7-Eleven and get a Slurpee. Not gonna happen. But I understand, you see these piles, but the difference is when I go do a VIN inspection on a vehicle, there's serial numbers that are all associated to one entire in an entity of a vehicle itself, right? The problem with bicycles is you scratch it off and it's gone. There's no more, there is no more numbers unless it's a hidden number. And sometimes if I come across a carbon fiber bike that someone might not, how did I say that right? You know what I'm saying.
Probably don't have the resources to buy it.
I didn't say it. But let's say we come across a carbon fiber bike that I know because I'm familiar with bikes. I do a lot of biking. I know that it's going to be at least a $2,000 bike. It's a lot of money. So with that, a lot of these companies will actually, they'll do hidden serial numbers on her that might be inside the handlebar, on the stem. So we look for those as well. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't take they're not taking the serial numbers down. So yeah, they have a stolen bike, but all they can give us is, well, it's purple and has a black stripe and a cool sticker on it and some tassels. You know, and by the time I find something remotely resembling that, like you said, it's in a pile of bike parts. There's no way to track wheels. There's no way to track brakes. There's no way to track the frames once it's been dismantled and the serial number's off. It is 100% gone. In 10 years of doing this job, I have probably found 3 stolen bikes that were actually registered. The Portland Bike Registry is great. But again, a lot of these people just, you know, that's the first thing I did with my bike is I took a photo of the serial number and now I have it.
I heard for every 1,000 bikes that you guys recover, only about 200 of them are claimed.
Yeah, that seems even high to me. And, you know, I'm not we actually have one guy who is a bike theft task force, which is, his name's Dave. Dave's good, he's got an uphill battle.
Dave's a bike man. I mean, it's so obvious down there.
Yeah,
If you're watching, you can see, as I've personally seen, a nice new Cadillac pull up, take 4 bicycles.
sure.
Something changes hands.
Oh, man.
Yes, day before yesterday, a couple, 3 days ago, a gray, sort of station wagon pulled up, and again, bicycles were loaded into it.
You got the plate numbers? You got plate numbers?
No, I was alongside of it, and I couldn't tell.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys are able to get plate numbers of something that doesn't look right, I mean, it's a stretch for me because I can't just go up to that person and say, hey, you had stolen bikes in there because he said so. So, I mean, again, the more information that I have, the better equipped I'm going to be to help you guys out. So, I mean, if you do catch a plate number, send it to me, we can check into it.
How about the alley on 82nd and Foster?
Which alley?
Yeah, what alley?
Bob's out.
Yeah, I know the alley.
What about Bob?
You know where Eight Wings is? Right, that is bad.
Foster on 8, Foster.
It is bad. I drove.
Just
10
east
people
of,
a day.
it's between Foster and then south of, or is it it's
Right
south
behind the
of?
tire shop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, gosh, yeah, we've been dealing with that alley.
Can we fence it off?
ODOT is very particular and PBOT is very particular. I myself am, I think like most of you, where it's like, it seems like it's an easy fix, but after doing this job for a while, it seems like things are a lot harder to get the ball rolling on. For instance, you know, Roger and Carol down at 82nd and Crystal Springs, the food cart owners down there,
Yeah.
they've been fighting that battle to get the you know, where Johnson Creek flows under 82nd
Oh,
right
yeah,
there.
yeah.
You know, they've been trying to get that gated for
years.
and just now, it's starting to get momentum.
Right.
And what that momentum is, I don't know. And I, you know, and I've called ODOT and I've said, hey, the gate is broke down on the trail at 82nd or 92nd Flavel, and you take the Springwater Trail and it loops around and it parallels the max track. Well, you can go down. We call that the jungle back in there, all that green space.
Yeah.
So they can now just freely
Yeah.
walk through there. And I've noticed too, they're taking the cement bricks on the overpass and they're taking them out to make like a cobblestone pathway.
Oh, cool.
So, as far as that goes, I mean, that's an interstate. There's some federal jurisdiction there as well, and there's some, you know, homeland security issues, in my opinion. Anybody that is underneath an internet or an interstate highway, that should be federally addressed as well. In my opinion.
Good luck.
I agree.
I reached out, but it was kind of like, yeah, where are you?
Yeah, and I said the same thing to ODOT, and they were like, well, that's actually going to be transit now for the max line. I'm like, but it's not part of transit. It's
Part of your
ODOT
freeway.
overpass.
Yeah.
But like I said, I mean, Carol and Roger have been fighting that battle to get a dang fence installed there, which I think is 100% it's a necessity to be down there because there's so many people and so much trash that gets accumulated underneath there. Where it's not. I mean, how many dollars have been spent to clean up the spring water?
That's my thought.
You know, it's a wildlife sanctuary and it's a protected salmon run.
Yeah.
Is there anybody that can deal with Johnson Creek to keep it from poisoning every fish that comes in there? It's so bad, just like
I
mud.
would love to meet them. I would love to meet them. I don't know.
Oh.
I have no
Because
idea.
you just, sometimes when you go over to the patch, you can see sleeping bags down there in the water.
Oh yeah, yeah. You can see
I
some.
got
Garbage.
salt cleans it out.
Bicycle, shopping
Oh, yeah,
carts.
salt will
In
walk
the
the
creek.
creek.
Oh yeah.
So nobody ever texts it?
I
Johnson
don't.
Creek Watershed is the only one I
Yeah,
know,
and
and they're
it could be the
volunteers.
Parks Bureau.
Yeah.
Not volunteering very well.
Well, they only have so many people.
Well, they
Is there-
told us while they were down there trying to clean it up.
Yeah, and that's also too. That's a good point. You know, volunteering is key because it's ultimately your guys' community.
Yeah.
And like you said, you know, you guys are setting up a trash pickup, and you know, is it bad to tell someone that, hey, it's on you to take care of it? Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like the best thing, but at the same time, it's like, what else are you
I
gonna
think
do?
most people look at it as taxes we pay the city
Yeah.
should give us some services. But that's it. No, I've been picking up trash for 3
And the
years, so,
state, and the
yeah, and the state, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Can I change the subject for today?
Yes.
Within
They keep
dear to my heart.
They need to go.
I live at the corner of 105th and Mount Scott Boulevard.
Okay.
I've been there for 15 years.
Okay.
When we first moved in, there might be 4 or 5 cars in the 15-minute period coming past my home. I've been doing the clocking of it, I've been watching and counting in minutes, and there's an average, there's a range of 17 cars a minute to 23 cars a minute going up and down that hill at 55 or 60 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And it's targeted for 35, which is probably too fast. A block down the street from us is a group home for individuals with developmental disabilities.
Yeah.
I see a young lady walking her 2 children across the street of a night after she gets off of the bus. There are no shoulders for people to walk on. There's some gentleman that's walking the trail every day.
Powell and 136th.
What's that?
How big of a stretch on Powell is there where it's just, there's no
Yeah.
street lights, there's no sidewalks?
Yeah.
And-
But this is a 2-lane road going up
Yeah.
the hill.
Yeah.
And it's even marked with dual lines.
Oh, double.
People, double lines. I thought that meant no passing, but
It does.
It doesn't mean anything.
They pass.
Yeah, I mean, it's, so here's the deal
So what do we
with
do
speed.
about it, I guess is the question. How do we slow it down?
You know what we do is you gotta write the emails to our traffic enforcement guys. They're the ones who go out on motorcycles and they write the tickets. But again, it's a double-edged sword if someone from in here is running late to work and yeah, I mean, rightly so. However, I mean, I just want to be clear that we institute a plan called Vision Zero, right? Which is anyone not familiar with that? Okay, so they've lowered the speeds on Division, Stark to
Carroll.
30, right? Is everyone aware of if it is Vision Zero still? No, it's not. It is not Vision Zero.
No.
So no, it's not. You can be going 30 miles an hour, but if you're a distracted driver and you're on your cell phone, or you're under the influence of something, or you're tired and you're falling asleep at the wheel.
Or if the pedestrian's dressed like you are.
Or, I mean, if you're not paying attention,
Yeah.
and you're going 15 miles an hour and you run someone over, you know, and then you get the people who are frustrated and they're like, this used to be 45, and you know, I can drive 45 down here because it's what it used to be, and they're passing through traffic, and then you have the person that's like, I'm going 30.
There's the pole with the cameras on it.
Yeah. So, I mean, traffic is a whole other animal. I don't usually deal with traffic stuff. But again, it's not something that can't be discussed, and it's not something that can't be addressed, because typically what does happen is emails come in and they say, hey, can you guys work a mission? That's the key word. Can you guys do a traffic mission at my corner? And give them the statistics that you just told me. Explain to them. You know, there's umpteen amount of cars that come through here in a minute, and they seem to all be doing over the speed limit that is posted. And that's all they need to know, and they'll say yep or nope. You know, what happens, I don't know, because that is a completely different division than I'm in. I can tell you just about anything you need to know about homelessness and problem areas.
Can't you cut the cord off of a hairdryer and spray paint it black and stand out there?
I would not advise that.
Your camera.
At one time, there were radar guns available to associations.
There were.
Yeah.
But they don't use them
So-
anymore. And is there the module that can be rolled out there on wheels and set up to?
But I mean,
This is the record speed.
yeah, it just records the speed. It
But it
doesn't
doesn't issue
actually.
a ticket. It
No.
does.
Not those.
You could have a button in your hand that makes
All
a
the-
flash on it.
It's a strobe.
The person in the van,
Yeah.
if you see a van,
Have you driven through such slow kids?
then yeah, that'll give you the ticket. It'll take your picture, front and rear license plate, and a picture of you. And you'll probably get it in the mail and be like, well, I could probably beat this because it doesn't look like me. And then you show up in court and it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's an ATV.
No, they get you on video. It's
I wondered about that.
So, moving on, I want to stay on track. Question?
I can ask you about the Vision Zero. You said it's changed name. I'm curious what the message is.
No, it hasn't changed the name. It's still Vision Zero, but
see.
I was saying that it's not Vision
Still
Zero.
casualties.
There are going to be casualties.
There's,
Well, no, we all know that. I just thought maybe the message had changed.
no, the message is still the same. It's, you know, it's just, it's unfortunate that I was trying to give a perspective of just lowering the speed doesn't necessarily mean people are going to abide by the laws.
Right.
And that, you know, because we implement these things called Vision Zero, which means no more pedestrian deaths, does not necessarily mean that there won't be any pedestrian deaths, unfortunately.
From 148th to about 190th.
Yeah.
It is a zoo of people in dark clothes and baby carriages crossing, not at the crosswalk, in the middle of the night.
I hope none of you have to see, you know, some of the stuff that we have to see.
Yeah.
Because it is not, it's not a good thing to be a part of it all. You know, it's very sad, and I think that, you know, when you talk to police officers, we out of anyone are going to be probably more invested than you would expect, just because we don't want to see that. So,
Is there anything you can tell about that kid that finally died from?
oh, man. So, no.
Corey.
So Officer Bianchini and myself, when we were pretty new, I think we were pretty new. We actually ran into Cody, probably what, like 8 years ago?
It's probably 15 or 16.
Yeah, he was a young kid. We met Cody, seriously, I mean, I know that we're kind of a joking crowd and I kind of have to come off lighthearted, but I take this very seriously. We met Cody, we'd run into him hundreds of times. Super nice kid, not a mean bone in his body. It's really sad.
Do you have any idea what's? Somebody's got to know what happened.
We've been putting feelers out with the people we know on the trails. It's a matter of time. I know I'm being recorded, so I'll be nice about it. But that person, you know, I pray that person ends up getting caught, because it's just, we would frequently see him, and we'd get our pictures with him.
Yeah, I used to see him everywhere.
Yeah, and he loved us. So he would run up. We stopped a whole group of kids that we actually rolled up on them on accident. They were all drinking beer, I think, or something in a park, and everyone ran except Cody.
Yeah.
And Cody's like, I don't run from the cops. I mean, that's just the type of nice kid he was. He was just a genuinely nice kid.
That's why I can't see somebody doing that to him.
No, and I mean, Bob, when we heard about this, that was like,
Well, I knew of
that was heartbreaking.
Yeah, he was around town and
Let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
personally, we talk when I go to
Yeah, this
hospital.
picture's been online.
That's my version.
Yeah.
Oh,
Is it skinny or me?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that's a rough one.
So I just want to say something
Change the
about
subject.
Bob's comment about the traffic. And I think what really has happened is because they've rescaped Foster so beautifully, I think people are using Mount Scott to get into town. And that's why the increase in the traffic flow. Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
half the problem.
Well, I wish more would use it because I'm still backed up on Foster.
well,
Well, now with that construction on that,
The other half of the problem is that that's municipality, I call Happy Valley.
Yeah.
That was the
There
worst
are
thing to
thousands
do.
and thousands of new homes up in that area that weren't there 5 years ago.
Yeah, right.
And it's really in the thousands, and they're all coming down to get to 82nd or 205.
yeah, I mean,
It's also a major thoroughfare straight from Damascus.
yeah. it is.
exactly. I mean, there's tons of arteries that run into main roads out there, but again, that's something that, you know,
And I know we're just gonna have to live with that as
Yeah.
the more people looking, but the speed, there's already been 3 deaths in 4 years.
You guys can make a lot of money here, correct? Put that on, tell your traffic people.
we don't make the money.
Well, the
Well,
court system makes.
The city does.
Yeah, I don't know.
It doesn't trickle down.
I never see it. I said, yeah, I was on a street for like 3 years where I never got a ticket, so.
You're an agent.
But again, yeah, I'm in a different department, so, you know, it's, yeah, we all kind of have our own individual problems, and like I said, you know, you guys got to reach out to me, because I go from 205 west to 39th, from Clackamas County border all the way to I-84. So, I mean, unfortunately, I don't want to sound mean, but you got to let me know, because if I don't know about it.
Yeah, really.
Sir.
I got one question. So, and I think the fairest thing to say is if you see something, get that information reported. The one point of contact, the more people that report it, the more quickly things get handled.
Yeah.
So you gotta kind of mess with the bee's nest and make it happen.
Yep.
So that they see, hey, there's 35 people reporting this in this area. But we had a situation on our block on 104th where a gentleman's car got broken into a couple nights ago. Tonight, this afternoon, in the daylight, we had a guy with multiple things under his arms and bags and stuff on him start walking up driveways to open garages. It was a nice day. Start looking at people's garages, start walking onto people's property. And so my neighbor, I was in the back, and I heard some yelling. I didn't know what was going on. I came out after the fact, but my neighbor had said, hey, you can't be going to people's yards. You need to get out of here. Which, you know, I think on our block, we're comfortable with, you know, some bit of, hey, we're here, we see you, you shouldn't be here, we don't know you, because we know the block. But I know that there are particulars about, you know, how aggressive or non-aggressive we should be. What is our best course of action? If we see somebody going on people's property, going through people's things, that we know is not supposed to be there.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to, like, you know, being a good neighbor.
Yeah.
If you're friends with your neighbors and you feel confident that they don't want that person and they don't know that person either. Yeah, I think, you know, be seen, be heard.
Yeah.
And say, hey, or, you know, snap a photo, I'm taking a picture of you, because who knows, maybe he just left a house that was open and he burglarized it.
Yeah.
Now we actually have a suspect, because it's so hard for us to actually catch someone who burglars someone's house.
Yeah.
You know, and these.
He actually, after about the third or fourth house property that he walked onto and looked into a car window that was parked there.
Yeah.
My neighbor said, you can't get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm going to call the police. And he said, okay, well, call yourself an ambulance too.
I'm not going to condone violence, but.
No, I know, but that's something we're going to
have to say that.
We're going to have to wrestle with that. I mean, personally, we're going to have to wrestle with that. I've confronted people in my yard before, and I called East Precinct and said, I just ran this guy off.
Yeah.
If you get a call, it's me, here's my address, come check me out.
No, it's, you know, I think it's one of those things where, again, it's
I want to know what to tell my neighbors though. Like, if you see something like that, do we call non-emergency? Do we call 911? I see reports all day long on Twitter about suspicious persons, suspicious vehicles. I mean, you guys are getting calls.
Yeah.
So, but does that go anywhere?
Yeah, there's a thing there where that really bothers me, when you got a little issue going on and you guys are out there, and sometimes what happens, you get called for some little stupid thing.
Yeah.
Oh, big crime is going on.
Yeah, I don't want to take away from the
Happens a
reason.
lot, you know.
Yeah.
It's an interesting time in the Bureau where it's, you know, it's, you guys have heard this a million times, and I don't want to pound it into the ground, but it's like, you really can look at stats, and you can look at calls for service, and you can look in the past and look at how many officers we had in the 90s versus how many cops we have now, and the call load that we had then in the 90s versus the call load we have now. We're understaffed, and we need you guys. I hear from you guys, how can I help you? I am going to ask you to talk to people who are more important than myself. Because right now, we're fighting an uphill battle. We're trying to get stuff done, but we get some, I mean, I don't want to go this political route, because that's not what we're here for. No, we're not going to go there.
RC does not want any more money to be spent on police officers. They want to cut it down And they're even talking about setting up a system where they have social workers going out doing it.
No, that's
Social
not
work,
gonna do it.
that's who I want to depend on.
Well,
No.
like I said, it's, you know, I love hearing from people in the community. Like I said, I've been a part of Lents for basically the whole time I've been a police officer. I've literally worked out in East Precinct and Southeast my entire career. So I have an investment to this community, and I actually have, you know, blood, sweat, and tears in this community. So it's incumbent upon you guys to understand as well that we need your help for some of these things.
So if more calls come in, does that show them that we need more help?
I mean, they've done surveys, and they know, like I said, the stats are out there. The stats are clear as day that we're understaffed.
Yeah, so this district down here, it's called our 90s district. So it's south of Foster, it's east of 82nd,
Right.
all the way out to, you know, borders of Gresham.
Yeah,
you know,
Gresham
Cottonwoods. This whole area gets one officer,
maybe.
Right.
and it doesn't get staffed if we're short. This is the
Wow.
first district that gets
Yeah.
zeroed out.
Yeah, this used to be, when we first started,
About right.
they would usually have 2, and then the district, it's called 20s, which is just west of 82nd, down from like, what's that border there? Holgate, down to Clackamas County border to 39th. That was staffed with 2.
You said 3.
3, that's right.
Yeah.
And now it's 1,
Yeah.
2, maybe?
And, you know, just the staffing is so low that this is the first area that gets gutted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've worked this area for about 10 years.
Yeah, he's,
And I used to have a cover car with me all the time. Now when I'm working it, I'm by myself. I've been up on the hill, you know, dealing with, you know, stolen car, full of bad guys. I'm up there for, you know, 15 minutes, just waiting for somebody. You know.
Rex on Barbara Welch, where you're the only cop out there, and I mean,
Nobody
anyone
wants
who's
to be
been down
replaced.
Barbara Welch in the
Scary.
wintertime.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you need multiple people, but, you know, that's,
Statistically too, this is one of the better areas in the city, or in East Precinct. That's why it doesn't get staffed, and the other areas do. So the other areas are way worse.
You guys need to get those body cams, you need your union to fight for that against the city. That's a safety thing for you
That
guys.
is.
Yeah, I don't mind. I would accept.
honestly, yeah, I think there's this like random like misconception where people are like, aha, the cops don't want the body cams. When
No, that's
in
not-
Yeah,
fact,
I don't think that's it.
That's
we would
not-
love
Understand
it.
who doesn't want
We would love it.
Yeah,
Because
they
it
do
was
it.
so easy for us, instead of saying, you know, our word versus someone else's word, it's like, look at the footage.
It's, yeah, it's right there, black and white right there. They can see
Yeah,
it.
Tammy and I have been emailing each other back and forth, because she wanted everyone to reach out to our
Mhm.
city commissioners and let them know how we feel about getting body cams for you guys.
For your safety.
Because,
Reach
yeah,
out to get
Yeah.
some more bodies.
Yeah.
Well, they got it now.
Yeah, more body.
well, they don't have the money for anything, so it's like, that's all I keep hearing.
And you know, I can't blame it. There's another article that just came out on Oregon Live, written by Maxine, and it was about the washout rate or termination rate of trainees that have started gone through, and it's a pretty big difference. And you know, I think in general, a lot of kids that come out of college and they're looking at, you know, agencies to work for, they look and I mean, the internet now is just
Yeah.
right at your fingertips.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you can look into somewhere before you work for them, right? And we all know if you type in police in Portland, it's gonna pop up.
It ain't
That's
worth
right.
it.
And,
Yeah, versus police in Newburgh.
right. They say, well, you know, the pay is good, but, you know, quality of life.
And just today we had somebody basically stalking us with
Yeah.
a camera, you know,
Following
asking
us around.
what we're doing.
Oh, was that Robert guy?
One of them.
Oh,
Part of the same.
Bob West.
Yeah, Bob West, yeah.
Different guy who actually our chief of police has a restraining order against,
Oh, really?
but he still can harass us. So.
Is there any help from Multnomah County Sheriffs in any of this stuff, or is that what they take care of is completely different?
Any help from Multnomah County?
Yeah,
No.
just the sheriff's office in general. I mean, you guys,
They're
how
on
do
the
you
gorge.
interact?
They don't really
Yeah.
come to the city very often.
Not anymore.
There's the county, you know, the jail, the inmate crews that come out and help clean up, and you know,
Yeah.
they help out a lot. But as far as county deputies go, they are usually working kind of out, Troutdale, Fairview, and then Corbett area. They have a huge area as well. So, no, they don't ever. I think they sometimes drift into Gresham. What's up?
Don't they actually contract with a couple of the smaller cities where the county actually provides their patrol officers?
Like Fairview and
Yeah, exactly.
Maywood Park.
Yeah.
Maywood Park is
They
actually
have a big area
That's
as
your
well.
little city now.
Yeah.
Maywood Park is actually. Is anyone familiar with Maywood Park?
It's its own city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's actually patrolled by Multnomah County, which is weird because
By
it's
contract.
So yeah, I mean it's I don't want to be the Debbie Downer, but honestly, I think that this new IAG agreement. I know some people have reservations about what's going on in the big offices downtown, but Lucas Hillier is actually doing a bang up job. He's working his rear end off, trying to get help out there. Rapid. What can you say bad about those guys?
Didn't they go to North Portland though?
They go all,
Oh,
they're
they go all
contracted
over.
through the city
Yeah, we
now.
saw them last week out by Metropolitan Warehouse, which is that north or north?
They just
Yeah.
have dump trucks and dump trucks
Yeah.
of trash
Yeah.
and debris.
I mean, those guys are, digging through all of it, picking it all up for us.
If I might ask, and this is my naivety showing here, but IAG, I Googled that a minute ago and it came up with Portland to Niagara Falls flights for me, so I don't know.
Can someone help me with the actual,
It's intergovernmental agreement
between ODOT and the
between
city?
ODOT and the
City
city.
of Portland.
So
To try
beforehand,
and
it was
homogenize
always like I
it.
was explaining, you move someone off the trail, they move
I
to
kind
the
of
city
get the
property.
picture, but it's like, what is this?
Yeah, so it's actually really good.
Yeah.
It allows us to kind of work the trail, and if anyone has actually walked the trail recently, the I-205 bike path, it's
It's gotten better.
yeah. I mean,
The winter helps too, though.
yeah.
I know. Here comes the sun.
Not like the song.
Near Valley.
So yeah, I mean it's I don't, like I said, I don't want to stress and beat down all the bad stuff. I want to look at some of the good stuff as well. Sir.
Yes, I just had a question. What do the power to be feel that is going to be the ultimate solution for the homeless? Do they actually have a plan, or are they just going to continue to move them around like they're doing now?
If I had that answer, I probably would be upstairs making directions. 'Cause I honestly don't
So
know.
they don't have a plan, probably, or they?
So San Francisco has a really good plan that they're doing right now.
They can't even
They have a-
distinguish who homeless people are yet.
They have these
Everyone's
social
homeless.
workers that will, have a client and they'll talk to somebody who's houseless. And like, is there anybody that you know or family members that might be able to take you in for a little while to get you back on your feet, give you a place to live, if we pay for your transportation out there? So what happens is social workers get that family member on the phone, make an agreement with them. Hey, is it okay if Joe Bob comes and lives with you until he can, maybe get on his feet, off of drugs or off of alcohol?
It actually happens?
And it's happening, it's working. They
Wow.
found that the success rate is pretty high with those clients that are going out to live in these stable places away from the life that they had, and with a little bit of help can get them kind of integrated back into society.
We have a similar program called Forward Home, or Homeward Bound, maybe that's the movie. And
Is it run by any Milo?
how'd you know? No, but it's similar. We've had it for a while, but it was kind of getting taken advantage of. Weird. That people would say, well, I have family in Arizona, and once they actually established, yes, they have family in Arizona, we would provide a bus ticket to Arizona for that person. But then again, it might come right back. I don't know. There is the rumor of where people were hearing people are coming out of prisons and coming straight to Portland is true. I mean, we all know that. It's people do. I've talked to people and I say, where are you from? I'm from the Midwest. What brings you out here? when I was doing some time, I heard that this is a great place and you can basically live out here for free and that's,
Not so bad, yeah.
We read about it on the
Yeah.
internet. We meet houses
Camp
people from
anywhere you want.
Louisiana, from
Yeah.
Michigan, from New York. I did live out here.
yeah, bus pass as soon as I got a job.
Do you have any family
Yep.
here?
That was the best I could get from out of Portland, Oregon.
So, but I mean, like I said again, I want to stress on things that actually are happening and things that are good. I mean, there's a laundry list of things that we can fix. Do we have the problem or the solution to homeless? Absolutely not. Otherwise, it would be implemented, and I would be so happy to share all of that with everyone here. Do I have answers? No. I mean, are there things that we can do better? Well, absolutely. Do we have the ability to do that? Some cases, yes. Some cases, no. It takes creativity in some areas. It takes money, funding in some areas. But we kind of, I don't want to pat ourselves on the back, but, the police officers that are out here in Southeast that I know of, and being on the NERD team for a while, I can say we're pretty creative as far as what we do, as far as when we see the transition. Everyone has been a part of Lents for a while. What did we originally see with the homeless? We saw them going into these foreclosed homes, and these foreclosed homes started popping up, and they became squatter houses, right? Squatter houses turned into what? Does anyone know?
Pile of ash.
Squatter houses turned into the RVs where they were being parked on the streets. RVs now, we finally have now we're getting parking enforcement on board with us and they're helping us out. Now the RVs are turning into now more homeless camps. So it's this evolving loop that's just like, you gotta stick with it, And again, two of us in our area is called 8950. Our area is very large, and I have Join in my district. If you've driven by Join in a while, it's an interesting sight to be seen.
Is that over in Montebello?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I deal with Montebello. I'm not saying one area is worse or one area is better. I'm just saying each has its own set of particular things that requires. Like if I could have 20 more of me or 20 more
That's
in,
what you need.
Yeah.
that would be great. But again, I can sit here and I can wish for that all day, or I can get up off my rear end and I can start just doing, okay, let's keep going. One problem after another.
I heard a rumor, and I think it was from someone in Montebello.
I don't like rumors.
I know, I'm sorry.
Joke's up.
That I thought it was your name that came up in this rumor,
Oh.
actually. No, I'm serious, because they said something about, I believe it was you, was starting a program with social workers this fall. And you were gonna start going out, or these social workers were gonna start going out on the trail again, and they did this last year, and find people who actually want help.
Let me
And
tell
then
you
by
something, Chuck.
June or July or whatever.
This is the first time I've ever heard of that.
Okay, okay.
I haven't,
It's
I
news
hope I
to
can
you.
keep doing what I'm doing now, and I
Right.
hope I don't have to maybe transition into something like that.
Okay, okay.
Anything's possible, but I can tell you one thing, that is nothing that I know about.
Okay.
Better read that again.
Yeah, I know.
I've been in Montebello for other things,
Uh-huh,
but not that.
okay.
No, I'm not, there's no programs.
There's no programs they're starting with social workers?
I got too much on my plate to be starting
Okay,
programs.
okay.
I'm kind of just,
Well, this is probably from downtown, you don't know about it yet.
I don't know. It's gonna work its way up, right?
Well, Ryan, are there any truthful rumors you'd like us to pass around?
Well, again, you got me. No. Maybe we're gonna get an MLB team. I'm hoping for that. I'm getting season tickets if it happens.
Whoa.
I was just gonna ask you guys what's up with the Pittsburgh Pirates hats.
I was just wondering the same.
Union hats. If I could, I'd be wearing the Pickles hats, but they said no.
Yeah.
So
St. Pete.
You and I had the same exact arguments.
Yeah.
I said the same thing, and they said, no, it's not. That's a white pea. This is a yellow pea. The pea for the pickles is a different logo. It's a different font.
Oh, different font.
Yeah, you know, they want the New Times Roman versus the
New Times Roman versus Calvin or whatever. Arial.
Anything else besides jokes? Because I got jokes for days. Yeah. Probably not appropriate for you. He's like, what? Any other comments? Does anyone have anything they want to ask? I don't believe it.
Come on, guys.
This is your chance.
I know as soon as we leave, you guys.
I know.
I should have asked.
So do we need to contact Sergeant Anderson? Is his name?
For what?
All
Craig.
the dumped cars that are getting dumped off by chop shops and all that?
No, that's my forte right there.
Okay.
What about the RVs that are parking under the I-205 over here on 92nd every night?
Okay, Peabody.
Peabody?
And,
Okay.
and one point of
One
contact.
point, yeah.
One
Okay.
point of contact. I'm telling you, it's.
Okay.
I know it's one of those things where you guys have been hit with, do this and do that and do this and do that,
Okay.
and you know it's the wheel of.
Yeah, they move out every day. See, that's the problem. They move. But they come back at night. We have a red pickup that dumps off piles of garbage
Yeah,
every
you can
night.
tell where they park by the
Every
pile of
night.
garbage they leave behind.
Every night.
What happened to the trees right down at the corner down there? Anybody know? Did you guys see that tonight?
No.
They need firewood.
A bunch of the trees right at the corner at bottom of Napa 92nd.
Yeah, they've been down since the last time we had that ice in the wind.
Oh, maybe Freeway Lands has been back there cleaning them up.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah,
lot
I
of them,
just
right?
noticed it just tonight.
Yeah, it's been down for a few weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, it's those trees were all diseased and had died.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
Freeway
did
Lands.
notice it, and I went,
Yeah,
oh.
it caught my eye tonight too.
Well, if you guys see us out there, wave at us. Say
Well, somebody
hi.
waved at us the other day when Kathleen and I were walking, and I didn't see him because I was picking up my trash.
I always give you a little honk when I go by it.
No, yeah, seriously, like it lifts our spirits when we get waves from people in the community.
Well, we
Because
like you. We love
obviously,
you guys.
obviously, we don't have the whole community here.
No,
But
yeah.
you know, it's nice to just get a simple hey, you know, versus
Yeah.
a hey with one finger.
Yeah.
You're number one.
Yeah.
Which is what I say all the time. Shouldn't say that. Gets me in trouble. All right, now we got some questions.
Just a comment, thanks for coming, thank you for what you do.
Yeah.
This room, we're in the midst of remodeling it into a coffee shop.
That's
So,
right.
free coffee for you guys.
We do not
Whatever you
accept
want.
gratuities.
They can't.
Can't do it.
Yeah, they can't do it.
Not even donuts?
Well, you can buy
Really?
Well, if
Donut jokes.
Donuts, those are great though. I mean, I-
Donut jokes. Actually, we were just talking about Doe's Donuts, and we're like,
Yes, right.
actually, did
It's
you guys
another
hear
level.
that the 7-Eleven at 82nd and Powell is going to be going away?
Oh,
No.
Doing what?
It's going to be going away.
No.
Yeah.
82nd and
Well, it's
Powell.
okay.
Wow.
Is this theft?
I don't know. But I would
It's-
assume.
Yeah,
It's probably theft and just,
I would think
It's
so, the
a
whole
place.
thing.
Winco put
The
it on.
coffee has a free sign on it.
No.
Is it not gratuitous at that? Can you guys?
If it's free for
I'll
everyone,
tell you what, when you open the coffee shop, or when the coffee shop is here, we'll come in and check it out. We'll do that.
And there might be a pot that says free just for Portland police.
And we probably won't drink out of that one.
Okay.
Because that could be bad. Honestly, yeah,
customers buy you a cup of coffee?
no gratuities.
That's still considered a TV.
Less of a question, but more of a confirmation of what you said about what we can do for you guys. And,
Yes.
I went to a neighborhood watch meeting where they tell you all the things you can do. The one thing I found effective is cleaning up your neighborhood, your streets. So, I live on a stretch from Holgate to Gladstone. I live 2 houses from, that's my stretch of multi-path.
Mm-hmm.
And at least a few times in a week, I go out there and I pick up all the garbage. And there's one of the guys that does it too, his name's Rob. And we clean up the garbage, and when homeless people come to you there, they see that it's somebody's taking care of this. You know?
Sure.
And they say a clean neighborhood is less likely to become.
Broken window.
Yeah.
Early on.
And we see, if somebody parks, we go out and we talk to them. We say, hey, we're a neighborhood watch that cares, and we appreciate it if you move on. We never get violent or threatening or anything like that.
The best way to
We
do
let
it.
our presence be known.
Yeah.
We let them know. And
I-
same with campers and stuff. so.
I applaud you.
Hey, Joe, is that official neighborhood watch?
Hmm?
Is that an official?
Well, I went to the official
no.
neighborhood watch.
Because official neighborhood watch has no contact.
Yeah.
None.
Oh, okay.
Okay, none.
They call
He's
them-
only watching us in a meeting to
I
hear what
probably
we
mean that
do.
more figuratively.
No, that's why we have to start with a
We're
bunch
just
and,
another neighbor watch then, is what we are.
Business cards?
Yes.
Please.
Yes.
Candy.
guy in our neighborhood got in trouble.
Oh, wow, okay.
There is, put yourself on the
You think it was one of those meatballs that was?
Hey, honestly though, everyone, it's a pleasure working for you guys. It seriously is. I always have a good time talking with you guys, and you know, it's I'm always here to help. So always
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, the email honestly is gold. I check my email all the time. Usually with my cell phone, when people call, I'm either in a meeting or I'm on a call, so I don't answer. And then if people don't leave me a voicemail, then I usually don't call back. So just yeah, email. Then I'm scatterbrained. Probably got ADD to some extent. So no, yeah, right. All right, everyone. It was good seeing you guys. Have a good night.
Okay, Brook and Sabrina,
Thank you.
Take it away.
So, this may be a little bit different than what you are accustomed to talking about. I teach architecture, as David mentioned. I've been at University of Oregon about 15 years. I was in Eugene for the bulk of the time, moved up here 3 years ago to direct our Portland program based in the White Stack building next to the Burnside Ridge, the old town, a lot of homeless people there, obviously. And this Sabrina Ortiz is a graduate student earning a Master of Architecture degree, does really phenomenal work, and she's been a research assistant of mine. We're actually looking at working on a project out here in Lents, and I just wanted to share that and also get your feedback about how we might approach it, because we haven't started. It's we're on the quarter system. We started April, we go through June, and so we're still kind of formulating this, and we'd love to hear what you might have to say. So I thought, and just so you know, the curriculum. So we have students who take classes in construction, and they learn about building materials. They learn about insulation and energy efficiency. We're actually really well known, our program, for being one of the top programs in energy conscious design in the country. And we attract really good students. We deal with social issues. Students have to learn to draw. They have to learn computer-aided design. So there's a whole range of things that they have to learn about. But it all centers around the studio environment, and so I teach studio. It actually has 12 contact hours a week. It's like a lot of class. And what I do is I come up with a problem, often a real problem in the world, and I have students develop design proposals in addressing it. So we're looking at Lents. We've been following the Oregon Solutions Project along, and I know many of you are aware of that work. And the end result was, I think, the proposal for a $94 million project, and whether it was actually going to deal with the flood problems adequately. Was it going to actually create economic opportunities for the neighborhood? There are all kinds of questions about that, and so we want to come in and maybe look at it from a fresh perspective and an alternative point of view. And so Char, we were talking to some folks about who are some of the community leaders and organizations that we might want to speak with, and they gave us Char's number, and Char was kind enough to spend some time with me on the phone and then ask us to be part of one of your meetings. So I really thank you for your time. I really do, because I know you have lots of really important things to do. So what I thought I'd do is just share the approach that we take and a couple projects that we've worked on and how that might influence how we think about Lents. But like I said, we haven't figured this thing out. We want your feedback. And I would say maybe some of the issues, because my name is Brook, I'm obsessed with water. And I deal with a lot of water stuff. And you know what's really interesting is architects don't really deal with water. It's like the engineers thing. Like I make space engineer. And it's actually when you start taking water really seriously, some really interesting things can start to happen. So I'm going to focus on that. I know that there are some major crises in terms of homelessness. And there's limits to what design can do, right? I mean, we need policy, we need enforcement. So I'm not here to present a solution to all your problems, because I simply can't do that given the tools that I have to work with. But maybe through this way of thinking, we could actually start to, there might be some fresh ways of thinking about the conversation that just took place.
Can I add?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add to that. In the academic world, we became interested in this area, particularly for the flooding issue and how Oregon Solutions in the city was looking to address that. And what we found as we started looking more into it and talking to people is that, there's much more than that as issues. I mean, with the water problem, there's also concerns about restoration and about, is it going to get trampled, and is there even, are people even using the trail as they should be because there's safety concerns. And so again, design can't fix everything, but you guys even mentioned that sometimes making nice places and making people aware of your presence through design. I mean, through particularly what we're going to be looking at is zoning and more of a larger scale, where will things go, where will shops go, where will there be what we call eyes on the street, meaning places where you can sit and people can see you, and you start to build your own community safety. And so that's something that we were really interested in learning, what the types of concerns that you might see and how a better design can start to address those concerns.
Great. And by the way, it's interesting, they can't get donuts. I always tell my students I take bribes. But it has to be.
Not now.
You might want to rethink that, given the latest news stories.
Isn't that crazy? Oh my gosh. But I always say it has to be in the form of food, because I can make the evidence disappear.
Oh, very smart.
So I'm just going to show a couple projects that I worked on, just to, again, give you a flavor for how we approach things, and then we're going to segue into what we're proposing. Okay, so I'm just going to hopefully, which is it, Sabrina? Do you know? Yeah. So this is actually, it may not look like it. This is a project that I worked on for 4 years, and it was a very, very, very inexpensive project. Really, really cheap. This is in the Netherlands. I was working in Germany. It's an office building, but we basically took greenhouses that are ubiquitous in the landscape in the Netherlands. They grow tulips, right? They have greenhouses all over the place. You can order them from a catalog. They're super cheap. And so we just span them across the offices, and you take a piece of glass and you turn a cold northern European climate into a Mediterranean climate, just like that. And so this became the energy system. There's no air conditioning. It's all passively or naturally ventilated, heated, and cooled. We worked with some really great consultants. And again, this came in terms of cost per square foot, much lower than a typical office building in the Netherlands. Yeah. And so there is what it looks like from the outside, and we have wildflower gardens and all this stuff. And you can see the greenhouses right there. And so I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, because I think it's much more important that we have a conversation instead of me talking all the time. And so here's the space. We started working with an artist named Michael Singer, who will be joining us for the studio in April. And he started by doing more fine art, but then he got into like garden design, placemaking, and community work. And so this is a cistern below. All the rainwater is gathered from the roofs, it's diverted to the cistern, and we use that water to water the plants. And then the evapotranspiration of the plants produces a cooling effect. So that's our air conditioning system is plants. Okay, next. So Michael Singer, again, he's doing fine art, and he gets hired to be the artist for a materials recovery facility in Phoenix, Arizona. And he says, hey, I want to be part of the planning team. And they're like, can't you just do your bronze sculpture in the lobby? And he said, you know what? If you mirror flip the plan, the workers won't be downwind from the trash. And they're like, oh, that's a good idea. And so he's very practical. But what it is, like this is in a neighborhood, and people who live in this neighborhood are really concerned about 18-wheelers, the trash, the litter on the streets. So next slide.
Does that sound familiar?
And so what he did is created a visitor's experience for a piece of infrastructure. And so the 18-wheelers are actually below. There's a gap in the road. They cruise along.
Brooke,
Yes.
Brooke, we need you to present this to our West Rock people.
At the bottom of the hill.
Yeah, no, seriously. And so his whole thing is infrastructure can be, it doesn't have to be an eyesore, and it can be a community amenity. And so people park here, and next slide, and they cross a bridge, and there's an amphitheater space, and now it's become one of the biggest field trip bus draws in the city of Phoenix, where kids come and learn about how they're
Well now, so if you're still doing this area, did you actually look at West Rock and see if you could come up with some kind of design?
Please.
Yeah,
Please.
that's what we do. And
Okay.
and it may be,
Not as large as that.
it may, like, we do studios every quarter, so there's only so much we can do, and
Right.
we could think about it as a longer term deal, you know?
Well,
Absolutely.
Foster, definitely.
You just,
Plenty along this corridor there.
Yeah. So anyway, he's going to be coming. He's got this remarkable ability to kind of flip problems on their head and come up with solutions that are supportive of the community. He's a wonderful guy. Next slide. And just another. And this is again like super low cost. Let's just use plants to as shade elements.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that complicated, but it can be quite beautiful. I'm going to show one other Michael Singer project. This is in Queens, New York, and it's basically this. If you go to the next slide, this is what it looked like before. So you got the elevated and parking lot and just all this infrastructure, and they basically turned it into a park, which is this beautiful thing. So taking these leftover spaces in the city and actually making them really nice places to spend some time. And if you get eyes on the park or eyes on the street, maybe, and people like to go there, then you're going to see less undesirable activity taking place. One last slide. I'm really lucky. I'm working on a project in Cairo, Egypt. My mother freaks out every time I go there. But there's this amazing woman named Mai El Abrashi. She's trying to, it's a really hard-hit neighborhood. The middle and upper middle class have fled to gated suburbs. It's falling apart. And she's looking at heritage conservation. These are 12th century shrines. She's trying to restore them to bring economic activity back to this part of the city. The problem is that there are these tenement apartments. Yeah, you can go to the next up here, and there are leaky pipes, and nobody's going to fix the pipes. And bedrock is just below grade, and so all this water is flooding these shrines. So she can't get money to repair the domes. Who's going to give her money to repair the domes when the foundations are being compromised? So what we've done is there's a vacant strip of land where people are basically selling drugs across the street right now. And we're going to use the liability, which is water, intercept it, treat it, pump it using solar pumps, and create a park. And there's like not much in the way of high-quality urban green space in the city of Cairo. And it would be mostly for women and children who really don't have access to.
So did I see that you're using like swales and weirs and?
Exactly. So you pump the water up, and then there's a series of, it's basically a subsurface wetland. So you never come into contact with polluted water, contaminated water. And there's a series of cells that treat it, and eventually it makes its way down. There's like a slope going this way to, you could have clean water elements that kids could play with. And it was a huge thing to think through maintenance and security. Like, you can't just build this thing and walk away. And so there's talk about nurseries here and other economic opportunities that would give people an incentive for taking care of the park. And that's another thing we could be talking about with this project in the spring. And then I'm showing one last project, and this is Sabrina Ortiz. This is the studio that we taught just in the fall. And it's actually the craziest project I've ever worked on with Michael. And it's actually a mosquito research facility in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. It's a long story. But mosquitoes kill more people by far than any other organism. And so they really are trying to look at how to curb disease, how to reduce the spread of malaria. Turns out dengue is like an urban deal, and it's really, really scary. The outbreaks are much greater. So we worked on this project, and maybe...
I think you have a question over here.
Oh, yeah.
I'm studying mosquitoes.
Are you really?
Yeah.
How long do they live?
Like, the males live to 10 days.
Nice.
And then the females live to like 42 to 48 days.
You're a smart guy.
That's just like humans.
Yeah.
And you know what we also learned is that when they swarm, that's when they reproduce. And they swarm when the sun is setting. So it's very romantic.
I want to be a mosquito.
So we've been looking at just the issue. God, we think we have problems. Like 30% of the people here have piped drinking water. They're digging bore wells next to cesspits and getting cholera and typhoid. It's horrible. So we're just trying to look at some alternatives to that. And Sabrina's team was looking at urban water management. If you go to the next, urban water management, intercepting stormwater, dealing with it, treating it, and also disease research is one integrated thing. And I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think something that we're very interested in doing is trying to figure out how design can start to become a tool of addressing these issues without, I know that in the conversation there's talk about the gate, right? Like blocking off certain parts so that they don't get trashed, and it's difficult because that's an immediate solution. You gate it and it's gone and the problem's fixed. But what was causing the problem is still there. Maybe it moves somewhere else, and so I think that we have the luxury of maybe sitting back and thinking, okay, maybe time for us is not necessarily the issue. And so how can we start to think of longer term solutions to the problem? So, for us, one of the things that we found really interesting in looking at mosquitoes was that, mosquitoes are, everybody wants to put prevention all over their bodies to try to keep them away. But one of the things that's a big problem is that polluted water helps mosquitoes grow. And so how do you start to treat that, address that issue so that the mosquito issue in the long term is not as bad, and so that you can start to think through more longer term solutions. And so that's something that we're really interested in this project, and things like security. Like how do you build a buffer, a secure buffer without building a gate, for instance? And so I don't know if you can really see it, but one of the solutions was we really just created a small gap between the public space and the research facility so that people can't jump it, but there's no gate. There's, so just thinking a little bit more creatively of how we create those buffers and how we think through those problems to encourage the activity that we want rather than preventing the one that we don't. So this is very different than the issues that the community here is seeing. But I think in a way that they're not that different. It's still the same security issues, the same trash issues, pollution, and just community environment. Here, I don't know how well you can tell, but thinking like this could be a public space where you can put food carts and you can have activity happening, the kind of activity that you do want to see, rather than thinking like, how do we prevent people from coming in? Like maybe we want to invite them, but we want to invite certain activities happening, right? So that's kind of the thinking. That's why we want to hear from everyone and to come up with solutions, to address those issues.
And so we've been looking at all these sites, and I think we're going to focus for this quarter. Again, there could be more on the pick and pull, because it's this really interesting site that's between Beggar's Tick and Foster floodplain. You've got residences to the northwest. You've got industry, obviously, on either side. We know in Oregon Solutions they were looking at, could it be a flood storage or could it be economic redevelopment? And we've actually been saying, could be a cut and fill operation where you connect the natural areas with cut, and then you use that fill to create high and dry sites for businesses that might provide living wage jobs. And I know some of the frustration with some of the economic analysis is it was really a fairly conservative thing, and maybe we're a little bit more pie in the sky, but we actually do think there could be some really, also it's on spring water, and if you think about the entire spring water, there's very, very few public spaces along it that people hang out. And wouldn't it be cool if you could bike and you could stop there and you could park your bike and there's a place to eat, and then suddenly there's 50 people paying to be there who are like keeping their eyes out on things, I think would be really amazing.
It used to be much more populated and used, but when you're bicycling down and some guy jumps out of the bushes with a machete, you don't want to bicycle down there anymore. And you can have a million eyes on it, but how does the general public that's not allowed to handcuff somebody deal with a guy like that? So that was
Discreetly.
But yeah, the Springwater corridor path is very much loved.
Right.
Yeah, I think.
But I think that's a great, I don't have the answer to that
No.
question. But I totally understand it. And it's a completely different situation, but we walk down Truth Street to our building every day, and we get to experience humanity in some pretty interesting ways. So we're aware of like people trying to have businesses there and actually struggling in some ways because of the sheer massive problems that are concentrated there.
Yeah, I think again, it's a layered problem, right? Like getting more police might not fix it. Then there's going to be more problems, so you're just going to keep adding more and more police. And then where's the money for the police being taken out of? Or are you raising taxes? And then it's a big compromise of like what to do and where to put resources, where to put money, who you're taking it from, or how much are you taking? And so I think that we only have so much capacity and so much knowledge about certain things, but we're thinking like, what can we do? Like how can we take our skills to maybe encourage certain uses, like certain retail uses or commercial, industrial, public, whatever that may be. This starts to bring more attention, because maybe if you have maybe, and I'm not super sure how this would work, but if you think like, okay, we need help in this part of Springwater Corridor, well, maybe there's nothing there to like really encourage police officers or the city to be like, well, that's not really our priority. But if you start saying like it's an economic center, this is like activities happening, like there's this, there's that, then maybe it becomes a center of attention, and more resources can be devoted to it. And it maybe our part is like we could start to reimagine that what it could look like, so that policy, so that money can start to, so the community can start to focus on in these spaces. One of just from my short experience here, I realized as a thinking like as an architect, but the Springwater Corridor, it seems like you get the back of buildings, right?
Yeah.
Like all the way through.
Yeah.
And so, yes, there's a guy jumping out at you with a machete, but maybe what is encouraging him to be in that spot with a machete is the fact that no one can see him.
Correct.
You know, it's the fact that he's hiding in the back of the building.
Correct. Yeah.
And so that's my perspective. That's what I'm seeing, and there's, you know, that's what I'm seeing as like maybe something could be done about that. Maybe I could potentially propose something to be done about that. And I think like that's kind of where we're going with
It's sad because that's why we loved it so much,
Right.
was that it was a natural
right
place.
Right.
And so we love it both for the same reasons, but for different.
Right. And then I mean the problem from the little that I'm hearing too is that because it's a beautiful natural place, like that's, you know, that's why it was loved, but then there's not as much investment in the restoration and keeping it beautiful because there's concerns about trampling and like, you know, so it's all kind of connected.
Exactly.
And we understand, historically, that's a railroad right away.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we talk about buildings that are back to that, there's a reason that they were originally established that way. The same with the housing.
Yeah.
So when they turned that into a trail and then declared it a park, there wasn't forward thinking to say what you're saying.
Yeah.
How do we reorient?
change the design
How do we
there?
reorient?
Right.
Well, there's a number of major crossings of various thoroughfares and a lot of choke points that could have this kind of development on it.
Absolutely.
Thinking of the west end, Johnson Creek Boulevard, between there and 82nd, and then of course farther out along Foster. There should be a number of points like that if you could get clumps of people, you know, Commerceville, then you'd have more people, and once again, it thins out the areas that people can hide.
Absolutely.
Not far.
Not here.
And so I agree, and so we, even though I said we're thinking about pick and pull, it's not just like the solution to pick and pull, it's like maybe some of the strategies we come up with in terms of the relationship of new economic activities to the corridor. Those strategies could translate to other choke points along the way.
Yeah.
So even though I have to manage a studio because I like throw a lot at my students and I say their heads are gonna explode and I have to like prevent the explosions. So we're gonna focus on one site, but again, I think the way that we think about the site, maybe it makes sense in other locations as well.
I think that's a good site.
Yeah.
Have you looked at the property just down over the hill here? I don't know what you call it, where the old wire
West Rock?
mill was.
Oh, we're talking about West Rock. You're talking about that industrial area over here off Foster?
Yeah.
You know, one of the biggest problems I think we have in southeast Portland is not a lot of jobs.
Right.
And traveling either to downtown or to Beaver Center or somewhere else.
Yep.
There's a huge industrial park center right down there. It's a pile of crap.
Right.
Yeah, freeway land.
Oh, are you talking about freeway?
Yeah, freeway lands, yes.
I don't know what.
Yeah,
It's like, it's huge.
Yes.
You're right on that. Okay,
Freeway land.
okay.
Yeah.
I was looking at, I was just
It's
looking
right
at.
over here.
Right on Johnson Creek.
Yeah.
Yes. 77
Yeah.
acres,
Yeah.
freeway land.
And we've actually looked at that site long ago. It's another great site to study.
Yeah, West
If
Rock
it
should
would be
move over
needed
there.
to draw more businesses to Lents
Right.
and create more recreational or green space,
Yeah.
and less huge truckloads of recycling material.
Absolutely. You know, we have an economist from Reed that we've done some work with who I think has some really interesting approaches. I mean, again, I'm not an economist, but there's been some conversations about, what's the future of the economic identity of this part of the city? And like west side, you got Adidas and Nike, and it's got, like, what's the complement to that? Like, what, in a really kind of visionary thing. I think there's a really cool history of food production. Into Gresham, their old logo is strawberries, and you've got Bridgeport and some other food producers.
There's Farms.
Ziegler Farm,
Zanger.
yeah.
So there's something there potentially. And imagine like fruit and vegetable processing, which is actually a pretty significant part of Oregon's economy. But if you had restaurants associated with that along Johnson Creek. Again, maybe you could start to create some buzz. Maybe that's not it. Maybe it's more light industry, but of a kind of cleaner kind, you know, more desirable. We talk a lot about maker spaces today. We're in my part of the world. But anyway, we're going to ask students, we're going to help provide resources for them, but help, you know, think about what those activities might be that could best support the kind of life of the community, that provide jobs so people don't have to commute so far. Is a really, really big deal. We're designers, we're not economists, but we do get to speculate. And I would say one thing about our school, there's some schools that are so theoretical, they just don't have anything to do with reality. There's some that are just purely technical. And we're a little in the middle. And so I've worked, for example, with TriMet, and it's not like, what are you working on now, but what do you wish you could be thinking about that you don't have time to think about, but you really need to be. And so that's the kind of way we'll set this up. And it's like exactly what Sabrina said. We can suspend some of the realities because it's an academic exercise, but it's really surprising sometimes what happens, that these ideas take root and things can happen. So Michael Singer, the artist, will be here. We're going to have an event at Leach on April 7th, which is a Sunday from 12 to 3.
I looked that up and I couldn't find it on their site.
If you go under urban design, and we can send you the link.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
Send you the link, and then you can just
link,
take it.
yeah.
There's the way that Portland is, so it's listed in Portland Design Week, but the way that Portland Design Week is, like, now there's a membership, but I put the link to just kind of sign up for that.
Okay.
So we're going to provide food, and you get a chance to meet Michael if you're interested in it. It's going to be a noon to 3 on a Sunday at Leach.
Okay, you gave me all that information, so I went on their site, was looking for it to put it on our site, and then I couldn't find anything. It's like,
And I will say, yeah, so we'll make sure you get that.
okay.
And I would say Design Week Portland focuses on downtown, and we really want to focus on this part of the city. It deserves attention and study, and it's really, actually really, really, really interesting.
Well, if you could help her with West Rock, that would be awesome.
Even these ideas, you bring ideas and you have Glenn's name attached to it, then we might have something to go over the city council with.
That's cool.
That's, you know, I mean, I think that
Make them care a little bit.
I'm sure you guys have heard enough about the political problems, you know, actually getting things done. But, you know, sometimes I think that even if it is an academic issue, that the fact that we're trying to make it, or tackle as many real problems, even though we're maybe assuming that the political situation can be better, but we can start to, like, imagine. And one of the tools that we have is that we have graphic skills and like, visual thinking. And so sometimes, like, maybe you can be talking to us and, you know, coming up with solutions, and we can actually make a drawing that shows what you're thinking, and then that's a way to carry the idea, you know, to carry this vision that you guys might have for the community. And I mean, that's really exciting for us.
They're not out here, they don't see what we see.
Right.
And if we can't give them an image of what we can see, they
That's
won't
right.
ever even
Exactly.
think about it.
You're absolutely right.
Exactly.
And they can, so this is a Sabrina drawing, I just want to say, it's pretty amazing. And that's an aerial perspective of Johnson Creek. And then the circles indicate different things that happened to the creek over its history, like the WPA. Did the work that they did, the flood. And
That caused the floods.
Exactly. They thought we were doing the right thing.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. And so the other thing I would say is, you know, we'll have like reviews, and it's really boring when just a bunch of architects come, like, honestly. And so I guess you will be our contact point.
Okay.
But you would most certainly be invited to come. Like, your expertise as residents of this part of the city would be invaluable to us, to point things out that we just can't see because we're not here every day. And so I'll share a schedule with you, and we'll get the link to the Design Report.
Yeah, that would be
Michael's going to give a talk at the White Stag on that Monday, which is the 8th of April.
Mhm.
And he's an amazing guy. He's really an amazing guy.
And just to, I mean, the event at Leach, just to give you guys an idea of what it is we're gonna bring maps, and we're gonna bring some sketching material, and really start to think big. You know, think big and think of what locations might be of concern. I mean, you were mentioning some.
Yeah, it'd be good to know.
And that's the best way that we can start to think of, okay, what are the areas that need to be looked at? And maybe it's something that is off the radar, but that could be, a key point, a key pivoting point. And it can be small, it can be big, it can be as small as thinking of a crosswalk, like where do they need a crosswalk? And, where can something as cheap as possible is like, you can paint a really nice crosswalk and have some like artists from the community or children or something design that or make it themselves. But where is that? Where does that sort of happen? And so it's going to be interactive, and it's going to be kind of a workshop and fun, but also hopefully very informative and hopefully very motivating for everybody that's there. That they have that you have a say, that you can start to be part of how we can reimagine what solutions can exist.
And we'll just be starting.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna come with the plans.
No renderings?
We can knock some out.
Yeah, we can bring you some.
My next question was gonna be, so when you guys put all this effort and stuff into this and the community involvement, what does it do from there? Where does it go from there?
It's a great question.
Next avenue.
So there are a couple things. There's a National Marine Fisheries Biological Opinion about FEMA, which is requiring all cities to think about building in the floodplain. And so so a couple things. There's a student team that won a Green Loop. Do you know the Green Loop? They're talking about this park.
Yeah, I heard about the Green, yeah.
Well, it was a U of O team that won, and then they presented at City Council, and it just made its way into the 2035 vision plan for Central City. So it could actually influence strategy and policy. Like if we come up with a different way, and kind of what I call this kind of more micro-urban, like the Oregon Solutions was like this kind of maybe heavy-handed big move and a very expensive one. And what we're saying is maybe you could have a series of smaller things that would be along the choke points. And you could spend less money and create more jobs and more kind of social life and vibrancy.
Did they ever do anything with that? I mean, we went to those meetings. I don't know if they ever came up with a final decision on any of it.
I don't know if they...
From word of mouth,
Yes.
I've heard, I haven't seen anything official. Word of mouth is that it was too big, it was too expensive.
Well, they spent 10 years doing that.
Too expensive.
I mean, I think this is just like us reimagining. I mean, this doesn't necessarily have to be in those places, but just thinking of smaller interventions that you can start to handle all of those things at the same time.
Yeah.
Kind of what you saw before in like the park that was turned in New York, that turned that big parking lot, like those kind of things can start to happen.
Right.
A little pattern.
That deal with water, that deal with like community spaces, and eyes on the street, recreation, all at the same time. But this one is what they had before, and I mean they wanted to raise Foster, like that's
I know, I was there.
I think eventually from word of mouth, don't quote me, but from what I understand, it was too expensive, and they were like, this is never going to happen.
Money. That was just so funny.
Over there, they'll take care of it.
Architects like to see it.
That was actually not architects.
That's the kind of stuff that gives them a bad name.
That was actually engineers.
That's engineers.
So we criticized them too.
They like big pipes and stuff.
Yeah, they like to think like we're just gonna knock all this down and put water in it. Like we'll pull up.
To answer your question, so it could actually have some impact.
Sure.
And we have lots of a good history of doing studios that end up. We're not going to build exactly what that student team drew.
Yeah,
but the strategy
idea out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
That's contagious.
There are also some really interesting questions about this biological opinion, and it sort of requires cities to adopt different ways of thinking about building in floodplains. And is there a way you can develop a floodplain that actually improves water quality and habitat? And my background is work with ecologists, and that's what we do. And then there's some really interesting, like the state, the DEQ wants more on-site stormwater management. But then again, these cities like Gresham are promoting smart growth, which is more compact, dense development to support their affordability goals. Those things are in complete conflict with one another. And that's where creative thinking comes in. So maybe we can come up with some creative ways of thinking about density versus on-site stormwater management. So I think we really care about this place, and it could be amazing actually, but it's also the case that some of the things that we come up with could be translatable to, there's a lot of building in floodplains in this city and in Seattle and other cities throughout the United States.
How long has it been since this area actually flooded?
Just a couple of years.
It's been a while.
Well, since they did all the snaky
Yeah.
stuff on the south side of Foster there, it's been pretty decent.
It's
but
worked.
I've been out there
That's
knee
great.
deep sandbagging before. I've been here since 8.
Well, I can
Yeah,
see
I
that.
rowboats on Foster for
Yep.
several years.
Wow.
I just live, I mean, the flood water used to come right up and just right into the corner of my front yard, because I'm just a block off Foster.
Were you like up here?
She's by West Rock.
Yeah, she's on,
South of Foster.
I asked,
Oh, sorry, Foster.
She's south of Foster,
I'm
yeah.
on 100th, these botanicals.
I asked that question because I've
This is
been
Grand's
around,
Bakery?
Yeah,
I've been around as
I'm up
long
here
as this
this
building's
morning.
been here
Okay.
since the early 80s.
yeah.
But
My
I'm up here
my
at the flood
recollection
used
is
to
it used to
come
flood
right
down
into
there
the
like
corner of my
frequently.
Oh,
Yeah,
every year.
every year.
Yeah.
Right.
Every
But
year.
it doesn't do that.
So,
No,
but I haven't
no.
seen it flood there for quite a while.
They dredged Johnson Creek.
Well, and they redirected Johnson Creek.
Yeah.
The WPA, because of concerns about flooding, the WPA came in and created a sluice.
Right.
It was a
Which
straight line
The philosophy at the time.
to accelerate the water
And get
to the
rid of-
Willamette.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and what happened is they actually reduced the linear value of the creek,
Yes.
which increased the volume, and it dumped out into Baker's Tick. My dad was a cop when I was a kid, and he was constantly being called out to 110th and Foster to direct traffic and keep people from going through that intersection. And when they did the redevelopment of the creek and brought it back to a more natural
Yeah.
flow, it increased that linear value of the flow, and
Increased capacity,
yeah, which increased capacity. They also had some backflow areas
Yeah.
that I actually think are useless because they probably only hold maybe 70 or 80,000 gallons.
Or
which,
just
in a flood.
Did that sluice,
Yeah.
did it have any impact or effect on the amount of water that went in the Willamette that created the CSO, combined sewer overflow?
I don't know.
I
Yeah.
don't think it would increase the total
But it
amount
still
of
happens.
Yeah.
It's just,
Still
it's
happens.
just the
It's
amount
still-
of water.
Not as bad as it used to.
It what?
It just increased the amount of, or decreased the amount of water in the stream bed.
Yeah.
It isn't going to increase the flow in the Willamette.
It's
No,
not.
yeah,
It's
it's
not
not.
going to create water.
No, it's not going to create water. It's just going to accelerate the flow
No, it just
and decrease the amount of holding
I'm just
capacity.
not real familiar with
It
it.
all, yeah. The creek out by where I live, which is Powell View, the creek runs much slower now, which means that habitat is restored. And they've done some habitat restoration. But,
Okay, we
yeah.
have a few
I
minutes.
wish somebody would concentrate on Johnson Creek, it's just,
It's a mess.
Bill-
Oh, it is a mess, yes.
it's just contaminated.
It is, it's
filth.
bad.
Well, it was cleaned up, what, a couple years ago?
Salt came out last
It's
year.
still way cleaner now than it was.
Well,
right.
and our group,
Yeah,
you know, did
Yeah.
a lot to
Yeah.
have it cleaned up.
yeah.
It's
But I mean,
big
salt
last
comes
year.
out usually on a yearly basis and does it.
And part of cleaning it up is slowing it down so your solids fall.
Right,
Yeah.
that's right.
And also the temperature is actually a big problem
Yeah.
for fish, which is kind of not something maybe a lot of, I didn't really think about it until I found
Well,
out.
they had little fishes in there a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I think they're all gone.
Yeah, I mean, obviously like the speed and there's this trash and there's toxins and all of that, but you know, temperature, there's also, even things from lotions and from medicine, it's a lot of that, you know, it's not just the trash, the visible trash, it's a lot of other things that go in there that you can't always see.
People
In the creek,
bathing
there's
in
not
it,
a-
living in
It's all
it.
kinds
Yeah.
of things, right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But I mean, sometimes like there's things that you can control, and some of that can start to, as we mentioned, like can start to create activity that supports like good activity, like
Yeah, well,
good
I
activity.
like your designs
You know?
that you've done, they're great.
And we'll be producing like
approach.
visuals,
Yeah, your
more
approach is
specific.
wonderful.
And I would just say the way we approach it is like, there's a lot of variables.
Yeah.
And the design, the really fun thing about design is you have to try to figure out how to put all these things together. And you can't have 27 things solving 27 problems. You can only afford 3 things that hopefully can solve 27. I mean, that's just the approach. So we're going to think about water and water quality, and we're going to think about jobs and economic development, and we're going to think about safety and what that spring water corridor experiences could be like.
There's a lot
in
of
the future.
jobs in that area, believe it or not.
Yep, yeah,
Mhm.
yes. But that's just the way we're gonna
Yeah.
think about it and produce some visuals that, again, we hope have some impact on, and we love your input because you know this place a heck of a lot better than we do. Yes, you have a gentleman, this gentleman.
What
has a
did
question.
you say first about like the little bus stop type of things where people could
Hang out.
Oh,
yeah,
on the
hang out
trail.
and stuff?
On the trail.
Oh,
Trail?
yeah, I mean, just, what we're
Rest
thinking, yeah, we're thinking of, I mean, that's just like a small idea, but we're just thinking like if there's even opportunities to do stops, destinations along the trail, where those could happen, like maybe there's somewhere that's vacant or somewhere that's, that maybe there's a tenant out there that's like, if you want to do something with this spot, like go for it. I mean, thinking about that, and because that would be really fun, if you could stop and see something or look or.
What about pop-ups or something?
Yeah, pop-ups, or, I mean, it doesn't have to be a building, like,
Yeah.
we say architecture, but architecture is not just a building, it's the activity, it's the activity that you create, and maybe it's a building with no walls, and, you can stand in it and have a picnic, and, but maybe there's other things that are supporting it, and, to make sure that it is the activity you want.
It's like a covered area.
It could be, yeah. You should come and start drawing some ideas.
Yeah, and you're welcome to
Seriously.
come visit the studio in the White Stag, and I'm not kidding.
Or is it?
It's in Old Town.
Downtown.
But seriously,
It's
like,
downtown.
it's the funnest environment you'll have ever been in. It's really exciting, and people are making models and making drawings, and you should come visit. I'm not kidding. I'll give you my card. You can come.
How exciting. How exciting.
They're good at outing for you.
All right.
You can be an architect.
There you go.
You know, my son, he's 15, his model making skill, like I gave him a little bit of a tutorial. It's crazy, like the skill. I'm like, darn, I was hoping you'd be good at like Ponzi schemes. Hedge fund management, I don't know. Come on, man. Yeah.
It's gonna be using up my Revit license very soon.
But yeah, again, I mean, we just really want you guys to be involved. We only have so much power ourselves as well, and so having the support of groups, dedicated groups like you, are really what could actually make a difference. We all do our part, what we're good at, what we have, power in, and hopefully actually come up with solutions. And maybe they're not our solutions, but maybe those solutions can start to, or maybe those ideas can start to spark other ideas for solutions that actually might be more plausible.
Well, Char, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you guys for hearing our spiel. And hopefully we see you. We're going to share the information about the
Okay.
events, and yeah, we'd love to see you guys and come out.
And I
And
do have cards for people who want.
I'll take a card.
yeah.
This guy's number one.
All right, man. You come. What's your name?
Fox.
Fox? That's a cool
You should
name.
come draw.
Yeah.
He does believe.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. I want to go too.
Fox Muller, he does believe. You've seen X-Files, right?
Of course. I know that she wants to steal your idea about the running.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for
Nice to
coming.
meet you all. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Seriously, we have a problem.
Sabrina's done a really great job. She's like talked to a lot of people, so it's been really interesting to people, Bureau of Environmental Service. Everybody's got a slice of a perspective, and we're trying to like build up a more.
Everybody's got their agenda.
Her head's not even exploded yet either.
She's good. She can handle a lot of.
Can she? Okay.
I try.
Okay.
exploding, it's imploding.
It's
imploding.
Okay, you can't see it.
Critical mass.
Well, thank you guys.
Okay.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Be in touch.
Thank you all for coming, for the meeting's adjourned.